And we are back. Another outstanding episode of the Square Table Degenerates. Today we welcome to the show illusionist and star of the 2B series Culture Shock, airing now, Mr. Rich Manley. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. It's what is it, Monday? Yeah, Monday. Just back to work tomorrow. Nice fun weekend. I mean, it was a serviceable weekend, but man, that Cavs game last night was just a hot mess. So we'll see. We'll see. But oh yeah. So the internet tells me you were born mid '80s, give or take,
Yep.
Eastern Massachusetts. You started
Yep.
learning magic from your grandpa around 10, give or take, right? Dr.
That's
Douglas
right. That's
Marchers.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
is your grandpa like Indiana Jones? Describe him as an individual. Like what led you to gravitate towards him and what he started to do, wanted to do.
Yeah. So he was kind of like he was very much like an Indiana Jones type. When I was a kid, he was often, away traveling on all these escapades, and he'd bring back trinkets and everything and bring them and put them in his study, which was pretty fascinating as a 10-year-old kid. I wasn't allowed in there, but I'd sneak in. And I'd see him bring, arrowheads or spearheads back from the Amazon and like trinkets from Tibet. And the one thing he showed me that I remember the most is this card trick. When I snuck into his study one time, he caught me and he said, I knew I'd find you here eventually. I'd like to show you something. So he showed me my first card trick. And come to find out that in the 40s, surgeons learned sleight of hand to be better with their finger dexterity. So that's how my grandfather learned magic. And he used that skill to communicate with cultures, and it was a way to like bridge the cultural gap between them. So it was really interesting to see how he did that with magic, and it really inspired me.
Okay, so you were just that's actually pretty badass. The study. I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
My dad had a study back when we lived in Chicago or Illinois there in the '80s. And I haven't heard that term in so long. That's funny. I always picture the
Yeah.
old because back in the '80s we had the. This is probably right when you were born, then that old time frame. But we only had two TVs. We had one main TV, and then we had a small black and white in the other room. And that's
Yeah.
that's his office. And I suppose I got my home office here too, so it's the same thing. We just don't call it a study anymore. We call it studio, I guess, right?
Yeah. I mean, his was the legit. He had an old record player. He was always playing classical music. I mean, it was it was like an old Steven Spielberg, Indiana Jones setting, really.
Did he have a bunch of old books and like a liquor cabinet? I mean, how in depth was this thing?
Oh yeah, no, he dressed. I mean, he was always dressing the part. He had, slacks. He would have a button down and a vest, and he had his liquor cabinet. He had I think he always had dark liquor in a glass decanter, and then he had glasses and yeah. So he was like this adventure explorer 1800s. It was just the whole thing.
Oh yeah. All right. So let's put you're about the mid '90s and you're starting to like magic, it seems like, when you're breaking into grandfather's study and
Yeah.
learning the
Yeah.
card tricks and all that. This is like the David Copperfield, maybe David Blaine era. What is your
Yeah.
opinion of those two guys?
I mean, I grew up watching them. I grew up watching both of them, and I think it was a combination of that and my grandfather. I mean, my grandfather was really inspiration for magic for me because I wanted to adventure and I wanted to see the magic of the world. Really, I wanted to see shamans in Africa and all that. So watching the shows was kind of an extension of that. Just like, oh wow, there's other magicians. There's magicians doing this on TV. This is really cool. And I think they kind of paved the way for other people to have their own, experiences, shows, and showcase magic in a different way.
I should have looked it up. I bet you were probably similarly born to the date that David Copperfield made the Statue of Liberty disappear.
Yeah, I think I was pretty young when that happened, but I remember it. It was a special he was doing. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's a long time. So did you learn or did you have anyone from like a bygone area you emulated? Harry Houdini, go that far. What I mean, you're like a magic historian, illusionist historian. Like, what are some of the first early America magicians and stuff that really fascinated you, if you have any?
You know, I would say it's probably more Houdini. I guess everyone would say that, but I just like the idea of escapes and more stunts, and he really paved the way for that. So the escape, shackles escapes, being upside down in a straitjacket, all that stuff to me is fascinating. I like those bigger things. Even though I do more sleight of hand, I was always like, oh, I want to do these bigger stunts. And, that's where the adventure comes into play, where it's like, okay, I can use these adventure elements to create these magic spectacles. So I think it had to be Houdini when he was just doing all that crazy stuff that really got me interested.
And there's no reason for me to have a fear of being locked in a box underwater, because that's probably never going to happen. But fucking hell, it's got to be like one of my biggest fears, right? You're just in a box, and you're going underwater and the thing's filling up. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a trick to it. He's probably not really in the box or whatever, but like, fucking hell, that and I think it was Blunden, the guy's name. He used to walk over Niagara Falls on the tightrope, and he carried his assistant once on his back. This is talking 1845. And for some reason, I always have a fear of being on somebody's back in a tightrope going over Niagara Falls, even though it's never going to happen. But I'm like, I'm going to fall. And it's like, it's horrible.
Yeah. No, it's funny you mentioned Niagara Falls, because I was contemplating some ideas for some adventure stunts involving Niagara Falls and kayaking and all of that. So it is a scary place, like, to think about going over, but to do something magical while going over is also interesting.
Niagara Falls is fun. It is. That was there a little bit ago. They broke into my car. It's the first time I had somebody break into my car in a while.
Oh, man.
And they took all my change. Yeah, it was like $4 or $5 a change. It is what it is. And I was a dumbass. I didn't lock the car. I should have locked it. And it was a parking garage. Who the fuck steals from a parking garage? That's supposed to be like secure. So I don't know. And it's one of those things. It's I don't know. I live in Cleveland, and like downtown here, I park garages all the time. Never break in it. Nobody's ever. I park on the street and fucking doesn't have to worry about it. So I don't know.
No, I hear you on the break-ins. I've got this lifted Jeep, and I put a lot of work into it, like building this whole 37-inch tires and this big lift. And, I thought it would scare people away, but they've still broken into my car.
Now, are you the Jeep Duck clan? Are you in that thing? How many Jeep Ducks you got?
I used to, it's funny because I've always had Jeeps, and I've always built them up. So I just like to work on them as a project. And, the first one I built up, I was going through an intersection. Some guy smashed into the Jeep, and I was just, it sucked because it was like one of my favorite Jeeps. His car was totaled. Mine was barely scratched. I think he hit me in an Infinity, and I was like, oh man, now all this hard work's gone. And they're like, oh, we're just gonna total loss it. But I got my next Jeep, and it was a 2-door, and I lifted it. I pulled the seats out of the back and put a fridge in there for overlanding, and a big roof tent and all that. I just spent years and years. This is what I have now on it, just building it up. And so those are kind of the two Wranglers that I've had, but I've also had Cherokees, and it's always been Jeeps for me.
Okay, now I saw a meme the other day. I was random talk about Jeeps, but I saw that somebody posted they had a Jeep and they did this like trek, and they got like I don't know what it was. It was a trophy or a trinket around that thing. Is that you seem to be a Jeep aficionado, so to speak? Is that a thing? What ones have you gotten? If so, it's like one you want to aspire to get, kind of thing. Like, oh, I trucked this truck, and because they got all these backwoods stuff all over the place. I mean, I see people mudding and all that all the time. What's the deal there?
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten, when I'm in Moab or Arizona or Sedona, I've gotten ducks put on my Jeep, and I was like, at first I was like, what the hell? What is this duck? And I would get them on my hood, and then a friend told me, they're like, that means they liked your Jeep. In the Jeep community, if you get ducked, that means your Jeep's cool. And I never knew that, and I was getting all these rubber duckies on my Jeep, and I thought someone was messing with me, but so that's something that I kind of was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Then I actually had one in LA, and someone just put it on there, and he was just leaving, and I was like, hey, are you from Arizona? And he was like, yeah, I'm traveling up here from Arizona. I was like, oh yeah, now I get it, the duck thing, which is cool. But other badges and stuff like that, I mainly just use the Jeep to overland and get to places. So I can either rock climb or go whitewater kayaking or any of those other or mountain biking. So the Jeep is so built up that it's just kind of a means to get to a place to base camp for other stuff.
Yes, sir. No, Moab, man. Moab is so gorgeous, dude. I went there because I was in Arizona in 07 for the Air Guard. We had some kind of thing going on, and we had a lot of time off. So, like, I got to go to like all the, Niagara Falls, not Niagara Falls, the Grand Canyon. Sedona, you said Sedona too. That's beautiful, right? You start that drive in Phoenix, you just take that route up, and you hit Sedona. Sedona is like, I would argue Sedona is almost just as good, if not better, than the Grand Canyon. There's some awesome rock formations there. Like, that's just so scenic, that the whole thing. And fucking hell, like, I mean, you got your houses there, probably $8 million a pop, man. It's ridiculous. What a drive, right?
Yeah. I have to say, I love Sedona and Moab. I mean, Grand Canyon and all those other places, I mean, they're great, but it's just, I think you can get more bang for your buck. There's more adventure over there. And yeah, I love going over there.
Yeah. Hey, you stole my joke for later. I literally had this exact same joke later on in the thing. I'll still do it. I'm still going to do the joke.
All right. Well, I got to say.
And Taylor Swift. I've seen Taylor Swift twice, actually, back in 2018. The joke is I've seen Taylor Swift more than I've seen Metallica, even though, they were free tickets. Is what it is. We got a question from Angie. She says, have you ever shared your secrets of illusion with anyone? Well, that's a great, I'll piggyback on that. Like, well, what is the threshold for that? Like, I mean, is it one of those things you just never say to anything? Like, very trusted? Are there certain ones you'll let person go and like, hey, I told the wife, this, the other people that, what's the threshold, secrets, that kind of thing?
It's interesting. The people that know the secrets are the ones that are mostly behind the scenes, and everyone's always saying, hey, show me how that's done. And then I'll say, oh yeah, I'll show you how it's done. And I'll end up making a trick out of it. So it's kind of misdirection in a way, like, yeah, I'll watch this. This is how it's done. But they're really watching where I want them to watch. And then I do something else and say, nah, just messing with you. But I don't really share too much of the magic unless there's, a team behind me that needs to know how to film it, or, just the only person that really knows, I'd have to say, is my mom. That's because she saw me doing all magic when I was growing up. I'd always say, hey, let me show you how this is done. Let me show you how this is done. And I just keep showing her the tricks. But other than that, my lips are sealed.
Hell yeah. We getting some Toledo love. That's where Toledo, Jeep's bear from Toledo. That's true, actually. I was born in Toledo. Actually, we moved out when I was 2. I only been through a couple times. Nice. I go through Toledo. When I go to Michigan to get weed, I go right through Toledo. I usually stop. If I stop, I don't stop off in Toledo itself. I'll stop off in, it's actually a little bit north of Toledo, but I go to the exit 7 on 290 north or 295 north. There's Tim Hortons there. And I really like Tim Hortons donuts. They got a great selection of donuts. So I always stop up there. Back in the day, I used to go up there because there's certain things here, Rich, we don't have. We don't have a White Castle. We don't have a Tim Hortons. There's not a Fazoli's anymore. So every time I go to Michigan, to get weed, I usually stop at some of them places. Yeah, because it's so good. Man, ain't nothing like hitting some White Castle after you hadn't had it. Well, that's a great question. I know it's hard to write from what we're talking about, but when was the last time you had White Castle?
Oh, man. It's just In-N-Out for me. I do the In-N-Out burger here. I've never had White Castle. So,
no way. Okay. What about Crystals? You ever had Crystals? It's the same thing, pretty much. Crystals.
No, it's only ever been In-N-Out or Sonic, because I went to school in Virginia, and that was the thing. Like, I went to college in Virginia, and it was like a small town in Radford, and it was Sonic. That's where we go, or Chick-fil-A. That was it, and yeah, that's it.
Oh, I could go for some Sonic right now, actually. Sonic, yeah. And there was the other one, the Jack in the Box. Do you have? No, they don't have them like in the South and in the West. Do you have a Jack in the Box by you? Do you like Jack in the Box at all?
Yeah, I'll do Jack in the Box. Those are like the on the road traveling north to the mountains. I think it's the Jack in the Box. I'll do. There's another one. They make good burgers. What is it? What's some burger place?
Five Guys, maybe. Five Guys?
Yeah, I've been there, but
I know what you're talking about. The Jack in the Box, In-N-Out. There was another one, and there's one more in California I'm thinking of. I know what you're talking about. They had it in the Big Lebowski. What the hell? Damn it, I wish Dorito was here. And
It's not Fat Burger. It's why can't I remember the name? But anyway, it's one of those like going, up north. It's like when you're passing through towns. I can't remember what it is though.
Sorry about that. My son's getting a charger. Whataburger. Was it Whataburger? That might have been it. Whataburger. I never had Whataburger. I've had much of the. Well, I've had Sonic. We got a Sonic here in Ohio, but the only ones the In-N-Out and I don't think it had.
They have a char. It's called a char burger. I don't know what that is.
I think I've had. There was another one. Damn it! There's so many burgers are hard to fuck up, right? I mean, it's pretty basic, right? You just kill a cow, put it through a grinding machine, and just put it in the saucepan. I guess. I mean, it's because it's like you get a burger and a nice beer, man. It's a good combination. It really is. I mean, but there's so many places like that. There really is. There's an exit. Lady C said Burger King. Get out of here, it's a Burger King. Fucking hell.
Oh yeah, no. What is it? Oh man, it starts with a C. I know it starts with a C. Man, I am now burger places. I'm now interested to know because this is driving me crazy. It's
Checkers? Is it Checker? Carl's Jr.? Carl's Jr.?
It's Carl's Jr.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we got those. They call them Hardee's and Carl's Jr. Same exact restaurant. They got Rallies and Checkers. Just depends what area of the country. Oh, you ain't lying. They got some fucking solid. Thick ass patties, man. It's good. When I used to, my one friend tutor the kids, and I would drive them down. There was a Hardee's down there, Carl's Jr. Stop there every time. Because you got to. It's so good.
Yeah. No, that's the go-to. I would say Carl's Jr. If I find a Carl's Jr. Used to be Wendy's, but Wendy's was that was back in the day when I was doing magic. I mean, I started doing magic here in Los Angeles, and I was doing it at the Magic Castle a lot. And there were days when I was first kind of coming up and doing TV shows and stuff like that. And so I do magic at bars, and I remember the bartenders would just keep feeding me alcohol, thinking that they would learn my secrets. And so they kept giving me shots after shots, thinking that I would, give away one of the tricks. But little did they know that the more that they were giving me, the better I got at magic for some weird reason. It's like I just got in this zone. So they never really got my secrets. But there was a Wendy's right down the street, and that's just kind of the place I went to sober up and then go home. But that's why I don't go to Wendy's anymore, because that just reminds me of those days when people just kept feeding me shots, and I can't go back to that.
Well, I would opine that not getting obliteratedly drunk, but man, most entertainment, let's say most like magic, comedy, acting, maybe whatever, art even. If you've had a couple drinks, I mean, you can smoke weed, whatever. Obviously, I'm a big weed guy, but like with drinks, you could get in that zone, that 2, 3, 4 beer drink zone. My goodness, dude. Because like if you see a good comedian who's roasting people and he's just vicious, like he's just eviscerating these people, chances are he's drinking a little bit, because you get a little edge because the filter goes off, the brain kind of shuts down. I mean, you just get mean. That's why it can be fun though. It can be funny. It can be really funny.
Yeah, I guess that's what happened to me. It just, when they were giving me these drinks, there was like this switch that just hit, and I was even like scaring myself to a degree. I do magic tricks, and sometimes I'd have someone pick a card, and I said, "Your card is the Queen of Diamonds," and I didn't even know what I was doing, but I got the name of the card, and I started to say, maybe there's some real power to this, or maybe I was losing my mind. I don't know, but that's why that phase has been there was an early phase of when I was doing magic for people, but now obviously it's grown into something more. And the magic that I do now really has a story, and it's really about connection. I mean, the whole thing, especially with Culture Shock, is all about meeting these people, and the magic is kind of taking a back seat to just learning about their ways of life and their traditions. Like when you go to Africa, a lot of them don't get to see this kind of entertainment. So you do magic for them, and their eyes just widen, and they're just so, in wonderment. They can't believe what they just saw. And then for me, it's not so much about how crazy the magic trick is. It's more about, the experience I've just given to these people. And it's a fantastic thing to see. And that's why I want people who watch it to see that too, and see those smiles of the kids and people, and showing how it connects people. It's just it's a fantastic thing, really.
The one magic, I don't know what made me think of this, but there was, you've seen the show, you've heard of the show Full House. You probably a little older, watch it live. But there was the one thing when cousin Joey, not cousin Joey, it's Uncle Joey, when he did this with his thumb, he went, my thumb's falling apart. You know what I mean? Like that. I thought about that so much. I constantly, when I'm like sitting there, I'll just be doing this with my thumbs randomly. Like, I literally just do that. Oh, my thumb's disappearing now. But with the kids, they're so sick of this one, Rich. They hate this. They're so done with it. But I'll take a knife and go like this. Oh, no.
Oh, and you did that pretty good. From on camera, it looked pretty good.
And Sarah, what were some of the earliest standard tricks that you would do? Like when you were 10, 11, I'm sure you're in, 5th, 6th grade, there's little Amy who's in your classmate or whatever, you're doing something to impress her. What was some of the earliest ones you were popping when you were a kid?
There was one trick that I kept. It was not really that it was done successfully, but there was one trick that I kept doing over and over again, and it was that trick my grandfather taught me. It was the first card trick, and it's a sleight of hand move where you basically got a card and you make the card disappear. So you're waving the card and boom, and it disappears. And he was so good at it that I really wanted to perfect it, because he just could do it in such a way that he'd make it disappear, he'd make it reappear, and it really did look like magic. And it's called card manipulation. So I tried to practice it over and over again. And obviously I was 10 years old when I learned this. So my hands were small, and you have to hide a card in your hand. And obviously a full-size playing card, I couldn't really hide it that well. So it took a lot of practice, because it was a really difficult technique. And at family get-togethers like Christmases, my family would come over and my grandfather would be watching, but it turned into a comedy act where everyone was kind of like, watching me, knowing it was going to fail, but being very nice. I'd do the trick and I'd say, okay, I'm going to make the card disappear. And they'd see it like behind my hand and everything. And everyone's like, oh yeah, great. And, afterwards, my grandfather would say, I can still see it, but I do know that you're practicing, and that's the most important thing. And eventually I did get it, but I think that was the trick that I did the most. And I was really trying to impress people in school and everywhere else. I'm sure I looked like an idiot because everyone could see what I was doing, but I stuck with it. And I think that's what my grandfather was saying, like, just stick with it,
That's great. Now, as a magician, I'm a casual comedian, so every now and then you'll get this like, oh, tell me something funny. You get you got to get. And how often do you get? That should be the question. How often do you get oh, so you're an illusionist. Do me an illusion. Do something. Do a magic trick for me, clown. Is there how often do you get that?
Yeah. So yeah, if someone knows that I'm a magician and they happen to comes up, they do say, oh yeah, that's really cool. They don't normally say, can I see something? It's normally the friends I'm with, and they're like, yeah, show them some magic. And I'm like, guys, we just came out tonight, just to have just a relaxing evening. And I used to be more proactive with it. When my friends were like, yeah, let's do something. Let's show me something. I do magic for them all the time. And then, slowly after a while, it became sort of like, my friends would go out just so that I would do magic for people so we could get a crowd or free drinks or something like that. And I was like, okay, guys, so now I put a cap on being the magic guy. So I will do magic, but don't bring it up. And I'll do it, if I'm working on something or a new trick or a new effect, I'll do some magic for you guys. But yeah, that's really, I rarely get, hey, can I see a magic trick from, like, maybe they're too nervous to ask. Okay. Because after my friends, say it, then they're like, oh yeah, we want to see a trick, but they don't actually do it unless prompted by somebody I'm with.
Okay. You know what my theory is on that when I think about it is that I think with stand-up comedy, I think a lot of people think they can do it. They're just, anybody, not everybody can do a magic trick. Like I'm not gonna lie, I know nothing about magic. I'm the stereotypical, dad bod, get whatever. I fit every dad stereotype pretty much, and I know zero magic tricks. Even the quarter in the year, I'd fuck that up too. There's no way. Like you said before, I can make a 6-pack or an ounce of weed disappear. That's about it. But like, did you? So did you? when you were coming up, were you having those? We used to get these books. We used to have magic books, right? And it would be like a catalog, and you could order like the rusty nail and all that kind of stuff. Did you when you were around that age? I mean, the internet was still a thing, but it was very in its infancy. We still use catalogs to order most stuff. What was do you have some fond memories of magic books from back in the day?
Yeah. So there was this one magic book that was like 20 pages, and it was just showing basic rope magic, or sugar packets. Like you take sugar packets at a restaurant. So it was basically things that you could do at home, and very little card tricks. But you could have a quarter come out of a sugar packet, or tie your hands and escape from a knot, or cut the knot and then make it reappear, or just like a cut or torn and restored bill, or torn and restored knot. So it had all those basic tricks in it, and I had those books. And I also had, my grandfather was showing me stuff too, a lot with coins and money and also cards. But they also had, eventually I think it was like the VHSs. They had tapes where you could watch stuff too. And I would get those. I remember maybe it was when it started coming out when I was more like teenager. But I would get these DVDs, and I would just sit in my living room with this little like mini DVD player. I don't know if you remember those, but they're like the little, you can open them up, you put the disc in, and I would watch those, and I would just keep, watching it and like learning the tricks. And that's kind of how I learned some of the new stuff that I was doing. But yeah, it was books and then the DVDs, really.
DVDs. I mean, it's not that long ago when we used DVDs, but you want to talk about a completely obsolete technology. I mean, you're never going to get it again. It's just not happening. I mean,
yeah,
it's funny because you think about like 1998 till about maybe 2010 or so. How many of the too hot for TV or on DVD only? We paid so much money for some scam bullshit. If you think about it, like all these workout programs and too hot for TV and this and that. It's all on YouTube for free now. That's why I like people talk about that. The 90s are so fun. The 90s was a lot of money for the people who don't even remember calling 900 numbers and getting DVDs and all kinds of ridiculous stuff, man.
Yeah, I know. It's well now. I mean, I'm looking at it too. Like you can all these like how-to things on YouTube and everything. I mean, if I'm working on my Jeep and there's something I don't know what to do with, like a certain part of it to how to fix it, I just go to YouTube now, and in a matter of 5 to 10 minutes, I can figure it out.
Right, literally. And before you had my dad would have a book. This library of books. Every car he had. You have a book on it. And yeah, it's totally easy now. Even my dumb ass can do some basic stuff. I wasn't doing the brakes though. I had brake issues, and I looked at the price, and I was like, yeah, this is good. I would fuck that up. So I took it to the counter edge for that. They had a good deal though. That was great. All right, now when you was little, you was a youth, as they say, what was some of the early travel that you did? Like, did you, I mean, you're an adventure guy. You've been all over the world. We're talking about some of the sweet places you've been here soon, obviously. But like, I fancy myself as somewhat of a traveler. I'm guaranteeing I'm nearly as much as you. But I have a sedentary job. It is what it is. I can't make travel my job. Props for that, by the way. I'm jealous of that part. But like, what is, what I asked there? Yeah, like what was some of your first travel experiences like when you were a kid?
I think the very first travel experience that was the most impactful. I mean, I went to places when I was a kid. We'd go to Canada, Quebec, and we'd travel a bit, but it was more family outings. And the most impactful one though for me was Egypt. And that was the first international travel that I did. And that was many years ago. And, it was such a eye opener for me because coming from the US, I had never traveled outside of it. And it was like a whole new world, just even the streets. Like I got there and there's people on top of buses, on the back of trucks, even like they're just dangling their feet off the back of trucks. And I'd be in a taxi and I just see these people drive by and I'm like, these people are going to get killed, but it was like a whole different thing. And I remember going into this famous bazaar in Cairo where I wanted to get some trinkets. I was actually looking for some papyrus paper and some scarab beetles, things to bring home. They're like trinkets. Right. And there was this older gentleman who was selling stuff. Nobody was really trying to buy anything from him. So I went up to him And I did this trick where I took a scarab beetle. It is, if you've seen The Mummy with Brendan Fraser, do you ever see the original? So it's those scarab beetles that go up the guy's arm and then they start getting inside the person. So those little things were amulets and they were signs of protection in ancient Egypt. So I wanted one. And so I did this trick for this older gentleman in this bazaar where I made it disappear and appear on his shoulder. And like he lit up and he couldn't believe what he had seen. And he called his friend over and his friend wanted to see more. So now this is when they were like, okay, show me more. And I was like, all right, that's cool. Because they genuinely were, really enthralled in what was happening. And then soon enough, all these other vendors started coming over and wanted to see the magic. And my buddy James was there, and we had our Canon, I think it was a 5D then, and he was like, I'm going to film this. So we filmed this whole bazaar, like 30 people were there, almost 50. It was like increasing. The more I did magic, more people were coming and just huddled and circled and pushing each other out of the way because they wanted to see what I was doing. And, I was getting mobbed by these people. It was like I was famous in this bazaar. And one guy pulled me out of the way, got me out of the crowd, pulled me into his house. And he actually ended up showing me a scarab beetle that was from ancient Egypt. He said, you don't want to buy any of these other items. Obviously, they're replicas. But this I found underneath my house because a lot of Egyptians, when they had their houses made or underneath the foundation, they found the artifacts from ancient Egypt, and the homeowners were able to keep them. So he kept this very real antique scarab beetle that was very small, and he showed it to me, and I was like, wow, this, like, I come face to face with, history. And he said, the reason I wanted to show you this was because I feel like you're Egyptian, like me. Like, I feel like you're a brother because of the magic. And he's like, Egyptians believe strongly in magic, and you presented that magic, so we feel like we have a connection with you. And so that really was a moment for me where I was like, there is actual power to magic, not in the sense of just simply entertainment, but there's people and cultures that really believe strongly in magic. So to have that experience with this person was just really eye-opening, and especially having all these people circle around me. And that was a through line to creating the TV show, was that moment that happened so many years ago in my first travel. And it was crazy. I mean, I had stuff that happened to me too, where I'd almost been killed or kidnapped or, put in jail. But this was a positive memory that I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool.
I mean, if it's like this with the jail thing, man, if you're a confident, exciting guy in this contemporary American world, you're going to have a couple stints in jail along the way. It's just the way the world works, man. Shit happens. That's like, it's not like I did fucking 5 years for racketeering. Yeah, it was a weekend or two here or there, 10 days, maybe. I don't know. Wasn't nothing, but God damn it, we had a good time, right?
One thing that I learned, though, was you can always get out of that with money.
100%.
In those countries. If you have the money, then you're free to go.
Oh, 100%. This is public record. I've talked about before. I had a DUI in 2018. I paid to make that bitch go away. I didn't even have to do nothing. Like, I didn't even have to go to jail one day. And that was my third one too, because I had a couple back in the 90s. It's like, yeah, you can pay to get that shit go away. It is what it is, man. It's just land of milk and honey. Speaking of money, are you were you a team sports guy or no?
I used to be. I used to watch, because coming from Massachusetts, Celtics. I was more basketball, baseball, Celtics, Red Sox. But I kind of just, I think it was during that time period when I was younger, where they were really, they were the teams. And then I kind of just fell off of watching that stuff, after college.
Would you say that, because I've noticed that a lot of people, because I got this buddy that was in the guard with, his name is Johnny Nuttall. And he never cared for team sports, but he was really, really into the outdoorsy stuff, really hands-on too. He worked, him and his dad would build houses in the summer. They were teachers, shit like that. So was that around the time you started getting more into you were always an outdoorsy, adventurous type, but I mean, I think there's a direct correlation kind of to what people pay attention to team sports and how much they enjoy the outdoors. Because once you get outdoors and you're doing adventures and stuff, you just don't care what, the Cavs did last night. You know what I mean? So is there any truth to that in your personal life?
Yeah, I think, I would agree with that, because it's like once you experience the outdoors and it becomes kind of addictive in a way. And I think it's the same thing with, when you're watching team sports, it becomes addictive in a way because you're constantly, you want to see, who's winning, who's losing, and how your team's doing. And I think one addiction takes over another where you're out in the outdoors. I mean, at least that's what happened for me. And I was like, wow, this is a whole new world. This is something different. And all my focus and attention was really on, okay, what can I do out here? And for me, I always loved climbing. I always loved being in, the rapids and whitewater kayaking and skiing. So I just kind of took that to the next level. And I was like, wow, I really want to set some goals for myself of what I can do out here, because it's like this playground that brings me back to being a kid almost, where I can learn these new things and just see these new places. And so then, a lot of watching or going to events kind of dwindled because I was in this like immersive experience of, wow, there's all these things I can see and all these adventures I can go on that kind of took over,
100%. And I've myself been trying to get back into nature. I mean, it's hard because you gotta be real. Nature requires effort. You have to actually get up. You got to walk either to the car or to the spot where it's nature. Sometimes you got to take other transportation to the nature. I mean, the good places that are worth getting to, are a trek. That's why I like the Virgin Islands. That's why I like the place we go to in the Virgin Islands in St. Thomas, because it's not easy to get to. It's not like you can just get off a plane, take a 2-minute cab ride, you're there. I mean, it's a 45-minute cab ride up all these twisted ass roads and shit. To get it to St. Thomas itself is a hassle. You always got to have a connector flight in Florida. So that's why I like that stuff, because life's an adventure, man. It's you got anything worth good in life. You gotta. It takes a long time to get there. My opinion.
Yeah, it does. It does.
All right, so like in high school, what was high school life like for you? Were you sawing sawing people in half for talent shows? Were you just casually doing it to impress people? What was the deal?
High school, I was still doing magic, but I was also doing martial arts because I was big into Kenpo, Shaolin, Wing Chun, and kickboxing and boxing. So I really liked all that stuff. And for me, high school was mostly trying to skip classes and learn more about fighting. And it was, it's kind of weird. I've gone through so many different phases of things that I've enjoyed. I mean, it's always been related in some way to the outdoors and culture, because for the martial arts, I was fascinated more with the Shaolin monks and Kung Fu, because in monistic life there at the Shaolin Temple, they train outside, and so I'd be watching Jet Li and Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan, mainly Jet Li. And I was like, wow, this guy can move like this. I want to be able to do that. It's just like the physicality that they had. And so during those high school years, I was like growing really tall, and I was like 6 feet at that point. And it was weird because my mom was like, it's good to be tall. And I was like, no, I want to be short so I could do all these cool moves and like do backflips and all these acrobatics. And, because it's more difficult. There's more dedication and time when you're taller just to do some of these things that they can do. And so I just spent so much time like practicing and training. And then I would go to the library in high school. I'd sneak out of classes, and I would actually go to the library and look up like what Bruce Lee was studying, Krishnamurti and all these philosophers, Socrates, because I was so obsessed with how Bruce Lee became as good as he did at something, which was martial arts. So I wanted to follow those kind of like steps that he did. And he read so much on all these philosophers and on life and on fencing, even all the different kinds of combat. So I'd go to the library and I'd say, hey, do you have a book on boxing, or do you have a book on fencing? And I need a book on philosophy, because I wanted to just soak up everything I could. So I think people in school, I was kind of like, I didn't really, I had friends, but it was more interpersonal for me. I was kind of an outcast in the sense that I just want to do my own thing. And I remember in chemistry class, I had tests, and I was a great student before then. I would get straight A's. I was great before high school. And then there came that point after, listening to Bruce Lee and reading his memoirs and his work, that I was like, you know what, I really want to go and experience the world for myself. Like, I feel like sitting down and listening to all these teachers talk about math and everything is not what I'm interested in. This is not what I want to do. And it felt like a prison to me. So I was like, I want to be able to experience. And I think the knowledge comes from experience. and then that translates to wisdom. So that's what I really wanted. And I remember I wrote, which is kind of a dick thing to do, but we had a test in chemistry, and there was all these formulas, and I didn't even study. I just wrote on the test. I said, there's no creativity in numbers. And that was it. And he read it and he said, there is, if you take the time to study. And I realized that there is actually creativity in numbers. There's creativity in everything, but it wasn't what I really was interested in. I just wanted to learn about the world and, how it worked. And that was really, that thirst for knowledge and understanding really translated for why I wanted to travel so much. So in other words, high school was kind of weird for me because I was just kind of doing my own thing,
I was a complete drunk in high school, total drunk. Like the second I found out I could get beer, forget about it. Because like we're living in the city, it's Cleveland, whatever. Not exactly completely affluent. Back then it wasn't too bad. I mean, but you had the stores, they didn't give a fuck. They would sell beer to anybody. So 50-year-old, 60-year-old me, oh, let's go, baby, party time. Yeah, it was a hot mess, a lot of excess. But you learn life lessons. You can't undo what you did. So it's just how it goes. Did you know what was your move at graduation? Were you any thoughts of the service? Did you think about what made you pick Radford University out of every place?
So Radford, it goes back to the martial arts thing. It was the only school that you could minor in martial arts. And so I was like, this is really interesting. I'm just going to go here because I'm not, I'm missing classes anyway in high school. If I can just go to school for something I want to, then that'd be great. So yeah, Radford was the pick there because of martial arts. And then I met, this martial arts instructor there who was great. And we became fast friends. He was a business owner, and he actually helped as a producer on my show, on my TV show. I brought him on because he had worked a lot in Hollywood as well on a TV show he had worked on back then. And so he had a lot of knowledge. And he was the first person that brought me to Los Angeles because I kept saying to him, hey, man, I'm doing all this martial arts and training here in school, and I'm going to school for it, to minor in sports physical fitness with a minor in martial arts. And I said to him, hey, I really want to do stunts in movies, and I know that you've gone to Hollywood. And he said, all right, well, I'll bring you on as a production assistant and we'll go to Hollywood. So I took some time off from college to go over there. And I ended up having to miss my acting classes because I had an acting teacher. And so I was missing like a week and a half of acting classes. And I got back from there and she failed me. And so she failed me. And I said, but look, I'm going over there to immerse myself in film and television. She's like, yes, but not the acting part of it. So, I have to give you an F. And I was like, well, I felt like they kind of went hand in hand at the time. But yeah, like I said, it goes back to, I just kind of always was paving my own path. And what, nope, there's my thing. And so that was kind of like my life in a nutshell. I was always wanted to just learn and do my own thing. And it was very difficult to keep me on a schedule. I would always get distracted and, I want to learn this. I want to go here, so.
But the only class, what I liked about college was if you were failing a class, you could just be like, just drop it. I don't want to take it anymore. You wouldn't even have to. It was great, man. It counted as a W. I don't know what they did in the grade point average, but that was nice. I liked that. I really liked the dropping the class. The only one, there was two of them I dropped. I dropped some math class. I overtook it way too early that I took the math class. Math is rough. And there was this class called Art of Oceania, Africa, and the Americas. And it was pretty much for art majors. The only reason I took it was because it was like a Wednesday, Friday, and I wanted to keep off, and I wanted to have off Fridays. It was a Monday, Wednesday. So but then I was really over my head in that class, boy. But they lie to you about the school, though. They say STEM pays the most. STEM doesn't pay shit. It doesn't. Entertainment and everything else pay. Look at the richest people out there. They're either, being born into money is the number one way to get rich, obviously. But beyond that, self-made millionaires, you're talking salespeople, real estate. It's common sense shit. It's not it's not STEM for sure. I've never seen a rich chemist. Oh, well, I don't know.
Yeah, man, I have to tell you, I was always, maybe I made a mistake and I should have paid attention more, but I was always following this like this untold or unspoken path that I felt I had to do, and every decision I ever made was something that I felt compelled I had to do for some reason. It was like, okay, I wasn't doing anything for money or fame really. It was because I really wanted to. Like I was like, look, when I die, and it was weird that I was thinking about this when I was that age, and I guess I still do to some degree, but back then I really was thinking about what do I want to experience in the world before I die. I mean, I know I only have this amount of youth before this sets in and this sets in and this sets in. So how can I structure my life to just absorb as much of being alive as I can before it's over? And, I never really thought about the money thing, which is probably, I probably should have, because when I first came out here, I was dealing with, really being homeless and trying to figure out how to build from nothing, which was a struggle for me because, again, it was always these kind of knee-jerk reactions of, okay, I'm going to go here, I'm just going to figure it out. And I never really had a plan. But I just kept following the thing in my head saying, okay, just keep going and learning no matter what.
Okay. Now, were you an established? I mean, at what point were you an established magician or illusionist? Like, was there a point you realized that this could be a career? And is it a career? I mean, is the adventure stuff, the acting stuff, is that a supplement, or what do you classify yourself as well?
Yeah. So the term that my team actually dubbed me as, which is really, I like it, is an adventure illusionist, which, they were saying, look, you have Chris Angel, who's shock magic. David Blaine is more endurance magic. And then, you do a combination of adventure and magic. So I'd say that's what I do, and it's more adventure than it is magic, and meeting people and performing for them. So if I'm doing events, I'm performing magic. But I also have a live stage show that I do, and it's a touring stage show that goes around the country. And it's magic based, but it's also the stories I've learned throughout my travels around the world. So stories like in Sri Lanka, I talk about meeting the Veda people, the oldest indigenous group in Sri Lanka, and it being the Demon's Island in the 1800s. That's what they believed, that there was just demons living there. And I met this exorcist who had a girl swallow 50 needles. And I asked the exorcist, why did she swallow 50 needles? And he basically said that the reason for that is because if anyone has a stomach ailment or they feel sick, they believe that that person is possessed by a demon. So to cure her, he had her swallow these needles to kill that demon and exhume it, basically exorcise the demon and pull out those needles one by one with a thread. So I tell the story, and then I proceed to ask someone to come up, and I say, here, take any one needle you want. That's okay. That's a great needle. Put it in my mouth, swallow the needle, show needle's gone, swallow some thread, and then pull the needle out from my stomach. These are some things that I do where I integrate magic and storytelling. And that's a show that's happening here in Hollywood. It actually will be happening in Ohio, and just all over the country. So that's kind of what I do.
That reminds you of, there was that guy, I 100% can't remember his name, and I'm sure he's not the only person who does it, because you just were describing it. But he would like take a coin and go, what? And show it, and they'd pop it up. Do you remember that? He used to be on Leno all the time.
Who was that?
Let me go to Google, type in guy who swallowed coins on Leno and see what happens.
I don't remember who that was. I mean,
oh my goodness, this might even have been Carson. Guy coins, Steve Starr. That doesn't make sense. Professional regurgitator. Yeah, Stevie Starr, the professional regurgitator. Okay, all right, whatever. That's
I've never seen that guy. That's interesting. I've never seen him. No.
Yeah. All right, so for this show, the initial one you did, Star Stunts Action, did you fly out to LA to be in this, or were you already out in LA at the time? What was the story there?
So the Star Stunts in Action, that is actually the show that I did with this guy that I met in Virginia. That was the show where he took me as a production assistant to work on that. Okay. That was my introduction to Los Angeles, basically.
Okay. Was there any culture shock? I mean, this is a while ago, but any culture shock going East Coast to West Coast?
Yes. Yeah, there was. Because growing up in Massachusetts, and I was a small town. I kind of grew up in the woods, and I had this very trusting mentality. So, like, because everyone knew each other. It was a small town. It's like, oh, yeah, I know this person, I know this person. And I was just really nice to people. And then I realized that people are a little bit more closed. I mean, they're nice, but, in the industry that I'm in, or the industry I was going into in the entertainment, they're a little bit more closed off. And also, there's a little bit more unscrupulous characters that are in that industry. So I found myself kind of trusting just the wrong people. And, you learn fast to be like, okay, these people are extremely strange people. These people are cool people. And you learn to avoid the strange, basically.
Okay, you pretty much described everybody on the East Coast or the West Coast. That's a great encapsulation of, if we're talking Seattle down to Portland down to Southern California, the entire region. That's a great way to describe it, honestly, right there. That's awesome. Now, how many years or how many days a year are you on the road?
Man, I go like every weekend I'm doing something, but then if I'm here in LA, I'm going somewhere every weekend. And most of the time it's the mountains or it's the desert, and I'm climbing or, doing something on the water. God, I would say most of the time I'm on the road. I mean, it's very rare that I am actually in the city. I prefer to be driving to Colorado or Utah or the mountains, Mammoth up in the Sierras, or even Washington and Oregon. So it's hard to say. Like, I would say probably 70 to 80, closer to 80% of the time I'm just on the road in other places,
Okay, so you're kind of like a professional wrestler almost. That's great.
I mean, unless we're filming and then I'm flying somewhere,
Okay. Dorito wants to know, have you ever been to the Magic Castle?
Oh, yeah. I used to perform there. I used to perform at the Magic Castle, yeah.
Okay, and if so, are you a member? I don't know. I guess they have memberships. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. I used to be a member, and I used to go a lot to the Magic Castle, and I loved it there. But no longer a member, sadly. But I do go on and off.
Okay. Now, tell me, have you ever gone to White Castle? No, we just we talked about that earlier. Believe it or not, we talked about that earlier. We talked about White Castle earlier. He has never had White Castle.
It's Carl's Jr. It's
Carl's Jr. Carl's Jr. Yeah, we talked about some Hardys. It was great. Yeah. All right, now tell me about. Don't take this question the wrong way. This is a chance for you to sell the show. All right, so tell me about the series Culture Shock. Wait, no, your series it's called Culture Shock, right?
Yes.
And you're not the first person to do a show about traveling in different spots. What sets you apart from the rest of these shows? And I think I know we'll know the answer, but like, what's your big hook? Like, hey, this is why you got to watch.
Yeah, so we really try to add the adventure element. The adventure is a little underplayed in this first season. We are doing a second season where the adventure is more prominent in there, but the first season really is about connection. And I think when I've always said when I started this, when there's magic shows in the past, I've seen that a lot of magicians will do tricks for the sake of the trick, and this is less about that. So it's not really a magic show as it is a travel adventure show, because it's like, okay, we get to the country, or I get to the country, the team does, and then we say we're going to travel through the country to get to this cultural group. So, for instance, in Namibia, it was to see the Himba tribe. Then you have to travel all around the country to reach the Himba, and they are this nomadic group of women that paint themselves, with this mud, this paste, and that's how they protect themselves from the sun. But it's a very iconic look, and so the process of that is we're going on this adventure. We're taking the audience with us, and we're seeing that connection. We're basically seeing how people live through the eyes of doing magic for them. So, in other words, if I was going somewhere and I just said, "Hey, nice to meet you," I wouldn't get the same kind of welcome where what I just told you earlier in Egypt, where everyone starts to like huddle around you and welcome you in and starts telling you stories and bringing you to places that you otherwise wouldn't get to, because magic is that sort of gateway into breaking the ice and getting to know that particular group a little better. And so connection is the real basis of the show, then adventure, and then magic. The magic is just kind of like that through line.
All right. I know this next question is a hard right. It's about stuff, but this is, we talk about the painting on the body things. I got to ask you this.
Yes.
Now, and because I've seen National Geographic when I was a kid, you probably know where I'm going with this. The show's a really, really big fan of the titties. Now, are the tribes that like? I mean, I'm sure you encountered a couple of them where they're bare-breasted. I would imagine, right?
Yes.
Are those kind of people? Do they party harder? Are they way more fun than like the people from the city? That kind of stuff. What's the deal?
So yeah, there was this, it's funny because I came to this one tribe, the Dasanesh tribe, and they're in Omo Valley in Ethiopia. And I didn't realize this at the time, but they were doing a lot of dancing, and we had come at a time. And by the way, my fixer, Alex, he didn't tell me really what was going on. So he just said, "Oh, you were going to meet the Dacianist people. They live off the banks of this river, and we're going to learn a little bit about them. You're going to be able to do some magic." And I said, "Okay, that's fantastic. I'm very excited to meet them." And so we get there, and there's men dancing in the middle of this circle, and there's other men on the sides, and there's women. And so the leader comes over, and he says something to Alex, my fixer, and they wanted me to dance. So I got in the middle of the circle, and it's really not like a dance per se, but it's a jump. So you're jumping, you're all holding each other's hands, and you're jumping in the air. So the guys are jumping in the air, and then you stop holding hands, and then you just kind of like hop. Everyone in a row is hopping, and then women would come and grab the guy's hands. So different women would pick a guy and then start dancing with them, and then one grabbed my arm, started dancing with me, and I was like, "Oh, okay," And then afterwards, I come to find out that this was a marriage ritual. And so, and I was like, Alex said to me, "Oh yeah, this is how they get married. This is how they pick their husbands, who can jump the highest." And I was like, so what are you saying here? Does that mean that I'm married?" And he's like, no, he's like, "I don't know, but no." And I'm like, I don't know what that means, He kind of was very dismissive of it. And then he said, "Oh no, we're gonna leave now and go," Then I was like, "Well, wait a minute," So that was interesting for me. I don't know, if I have a wife somewhere out there in Ethiopia on the banks of this river, but that did happen. So.
That makes me laugh. I'm picturing Ace Ventura when nature calls when he's going to the Wachutu tribe. He's got the things in his leg. I pictured the second you started talking about that I pictured Ace Ventura and Jim Carrey dancing. Oh God, it makes you laugh. That's so funny.
Yes.
Now you go into you did a lot. You get into some Africa. You did a lot of Africa travel. It looks like. Was there any places that you went to where it was trouble, like getting clearance to get into the place?
Sometimes it is, we always do our due diligence. The team does their due diligence, but sometimes, it's difficult if you're going to fly a drone. I mean, that's always a big issue within any of these certain countries anyway, is the drone. And, obviously we love to use drone because we want to see that scenery for the show. So we did have a couple of issues there. I remember going into Egypt where I was actually taking a stopover in Egypt. That wasn't part of the TV show, but we were filming in Ethiopia, and I stopped over in Egypt, but I had drones. I had a drone, a personal drone, 2 drones actually in my bag, and we had them cleared in Ethiopia. And I didn't think to myself, okay, I'm going to be taking these drones into Egypt. So I got stopped, and I got pulled over, or I got pulled to the side into the back. And now I had 2 drones, but one of them was broken, and the broken one was on top, the way I packed it, of the new one. So it kind of looked like one drone. And so the TSA there, they pulled me aside, and the agent there, he said, "Open your bag." I did, and he's like, "Do you have a drone?" And I said, and I'm trying to think fast. And I'm like, "Oh God, I totally forgot. You cannot bring drones into Egypt at all." And so I was like, "Oh, here we go." And so I said, "Yeah, I've got a drone." And I pulled that drone up, but also I'm thinking they're going to confiscate these drones. I don't want him to take the new one. So I took out the broken one, and kept the new one in there. And I said, "Yes, I have a drone." And I just thought they were going to take it. But he said to me, he's like, "Okay, I want you to put it on the ground and stomp on it." And I said, "It's already broken though. Do you want me to still do?" I mean, and I showed him the wing was broken. I said, "It's broken, but I can still stomp on it." And he's like, "Yes." And so I started stomping on it, breaking it more. And then he picked it up and he snapped it and he said, "Okay, you can go." And I was like, thank God I had that other drone as a decoy. And, obviously I never used it in the country. I was just I was passing through. But I I have averted danger there, I guess you could say.
No, no, this is a random ass question, but this made me laugh, and I'm going to equate it to certain because like certain times when you go to certain areas, you're singing a song like when I went to back in '01, we went to Travis Air Force Base, and the whole time I was going there, if you're going to San Francisco, it was stuck in my head the whole fuck away, the whole way. And when I was going to UK a couple years ago, that was in my head, like the whole plane right there. I mean, was Toto in Africa? Did you play that at any time when you were over there?
My buddy did, yeah. When he was driving, and he was a maniac behind the wheel, by the way. He was my photographer, and he was not a very good driver. He almost got us killed multiple times. So you can imagine this crazed driver just going like God knows how fast on these bumpy dirt roads, listening to that, having a blast, and everyone else in the car is terrified for their lives. But yes, that was played actually.
That sounds like any trip with me in the car, pretty much. Well, it's usually because everybody's really high and they're freaking out. But yeah, they're definitely fearing for their lives. I'm not the best driver in the world. It is what it is. I'm a comedian, a talk show host, and a bureaucrat. I'm not a fucking good driver. You know, you want a good driver, you go see Richard Petty. That's him. All right, now you need to know about Machu Picchu. Now you were in Peru. I'm assuming I didn't get to watch everything because there's a lot of episodes, but I did see Peru. So you went to Machu Picchu, I'm assuming, right? Okay. Tell me, because I really want to go. I really do want to go to Machu Picchu. That's the one. They don't have many bucket lists. They don't have many bucket lists, but Machu Picchu is the one I really want to do. Right.
So not Machu Picchu. That was on our list, but logistics wise, we couldn't do it and film there because we'd have to bring all of our camera gear up, and so we opted to go to Ollantaytambo, which is another really interesting spot. I mean, it is a Incan ruin. In a very special city in Inca history. So we went there, and then from there we ended up going to Pitamarca, climbed this mountain, reached the top. It was about 16,000 feet, I think we were up there, to reach a Quechua village. It was a settlement of these Quechua. If you've ever seen, I don't know, National Geographic, you'll see that they wear these brightly adorned dresses, and they live really high up there. And there's another kind of story where I was breathing hard and heavy, and it was hard for me to catch my breath because obviously I was way up there. And my fixer at the time said, "Oh, well, this is how you deal with it. You take these leaves." And so I start, he's like, "Yeah, here's some leaves." And there's like this black activator or whatever, and you put it and you roll it up and you just you chew it. And then you feel like your lungs open up. So he gave it to me, and he's like, he didn't really give me instructions on what to do. So I just took the whole thing and put it in my mouth. Right. And I was meeting a shaman to do a ceremony, a very important ceremony to Pachamama, who's Mother Earth. And the ceremony was really important because they give offerings to her, this whole village. And if the ceremony doesn't go well for them, then they'll have a bad harvest. If it does go well, then they have a good harvest. Like everything depends on her being happy to them. And so I'm like, my buddy comes up to me and he says, "Rich, are you okay? Your eyes are bloodshot and you're drooling." Half my face was numb and I was drooling out of the side of my mouth. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I felt great. And he comes up to me and he says, "What did he get? What did the fixer give you?" His name was Leo. And I said, "Oh, he gave me the leaves." He's like, "The coca leaves?" And I said, yeah, I ate the whole thing. And he's like, "Rich, that's one of the ingredients in cocaine. You're high. I can see it in your eyes. Your eyes are like, you look like you're a maniac right now." And I'm like drooling and my eyes are bugging out. And I have to meet this shaman, and he's like, "We need to get you water. We need to cool you down because you cannot meet this holy man like this." And so it was wild. They had to give me a timeout for a bit. And I didn't realize what they were and that you needed to take them in increments. I was just like, well, it's hard for me to breathe, so I'm just going to pop these in there. And it was wild.
I knew where you were going with that the second, because I just saw a documentary on coca leaves the other day. Yeah. It made me laugh. Oh, that's funny. That's so funny. Well, because like the second you get off the plane, if I was to guess, this is just me guessing. I've never been to Bolivia, Peru, etc. But like I would imagine the second you get, maybe not the second off the plane, but you get out of the airport, there's probably any like town center kind of thing. There's probably a shit ton of people eyeballing tourists, like, oh yeah, there's an American. I know he's coming here for cocaine. Let me, go over there, kind of thing. So it makes me laugh. Well, I mean, when you're going to like a place like that, I mean, you probably have great cardio. I mean, you're a decent looking guy. You're in that, but for somebody who's never, really, sedentary people. I mean, you might even not know the answer to this question, like, but what would you prep for in terms of going to a higher elevation spot and a lot of exertion? Like, I've been to 14,000 feet. I went to Mount Evans, smoked some weed up there and shit like that. But like, Machu Picchu is a different level of exertion. You're talking straight steps up. I'm sure some of the places you went to are quite similar. What adjustments? How do you prep for something like that?
Yeah, it's running, it's cardio. It's really, even if you're walking, even my team now, that because we're going to Bolivia for this episode, we're going to be filming soon. And, I tell them, I said, walk, run, get on a bike. And he, is my cinematographer, one of them that we have. He's like, yeah, I'm doing walks every day and miles of walks. And I'm like, okay, good. So I would say anything to do with cardio and keeping your cardio up, because it's just, when you're up there, you're at a certain altitude, you're above sea level regardless. And then most of the time we're going or hiking higher up in the show. So it's just all about cardio. And if you can, it's about getting to a higher elevation. Sometimes I'll even go to the mountains here, to the Sierras, which is higher elevation, and I'll sleep there and spend time there because, sleeping's a whole thing. When you get to higher elevation, it's hard to sleep. You get headaches. And so if you can spend some time in a higher elevation spot before going, that's a great way to acclimatize.
Okay. I'll fuck with it. Lady C has a question. Do you get any inspiration from the magic part from like the places, like reverse? Like your goal is to inspire people with the magic. But what sorts of inspiration do you take to the people and then incorporate into the magic at a later time?
So what kind of inspiration from people? So, when I've gone, and I think I've seen this a lot, especially when I went to the Amazon, the inspiration is to kind of be grateful for what I have, because when I saw these kids in the Amazon in Palma Real, and they're deep in the Amazon, almost close to uncontacted tribe territory, and you're on a boat to the Madre de Dios, down this river for miles and miles. It takes almost a day to get there. And I saw these kids rushing up, and I was asking a bunch of questions, about how they live. And, they only have one TV and they don't really get to see much. And they play soccer. They play a lot of soccer, and they, play outside and all that, but their form of entertainment is just really just being with each other and being with, their families and making food and all that. And, I think that inspired me more to, kind of in a philosophical way, empty my cup, and say, okay, I've got all this, we've got technology in the modern world, but, kind of be grateful for all that, but also seeing how they're really spending more time with people in their community, and I think that's something we can lose when we're, on our phones or even, at bars. And if they were at, like, let's say they were at a bar, they'd probably say hi to their neighbor and start talking and learning about them, and just the way they are. They're not so closed off. They're very, very friendly people. And that's how they survive, is just the stories within their communities and being close to each other. And I think that was really inspiring for me.
Okay. Now, I noticed in this upcoming season, you're going to Bolivia. So let's talk a little bit about Bolivia. Now, is that, there was that Calle de la Muerte, and I used to remember on the History Channel. Is that Bolivia, or is that another country? I can't remember. They call it the Death Road. It's just like huge road up in the mountains.
Yes, the Death Road. That is in Bolivia. We are going to be on that. Yes.
You are going to be on that. Wow,
Yes.
That's cool. You're going to be, dude, that's scary, man. It's really high up. You got to be careful out there, bro. It's
Yes.
Now, are you going to, in what capacity? Oh, no, now, since we got to get into this. We have bad drivers on our team, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Road, one bad turn, you could, Wile E. Coyote type shit. What's the deal with that? Are you going to be driving on the road or walking? Or what's the deal?
No, I'm putting the crew in the van with that guy, and I'm driving a motorcycle, and they'll be filming me on the motorcycle. I've made the executive decision not to be in the van with that guy.
It's a good decision, man. It's a good decision. It is. That's a solid one. That may be another fear of the high up. Well, I can't say it's a fear because, I don't know, because the ones in Colorado really weren't like that style. That road in Bolivia is like, there's fall offs either side and stuff. It's It's not like driving, because when you're driving in Pikes Peak or Mount Evans or any giant, road in the Rockies or wherever you're at, it's a one destination thing. It's just going up, and they got guardrails and safety nets. Even if it's a thing on the side, it's not that bad. On something like that, that's literally up in the mountains. It's like a skyway kind of thing, and that's crazy, man. You're gonna have some fun up there.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's good stuff on that, man.
I'll let you know if we make it back.
Right. Well, it's my goodness, it's it's funny. I was talking. You mentioned the Amazon. There's only one bridge they say that goes across the entire river. Isn't that crazy? That's why all these guys can't get on contact. No one can get down there. Drive across the river. You can't even get there. That's crazy. I have fun sure. Yeah. So it's like in that boat ride. I mean, did you have to take the malaria? This is a random question too, but medications and stuff. Well, your medication list has got to be intensive. I mean, do you go down to the Bolivia? Did you have to take the malaria pills, or what kind of stuff are you taking there?
Not so much in Bolivia. I mean, you did have to take the malaria pills in the Amazon because we were going to the jungle, and that's mainly where those mosquitoes are more prevalent. But in Bolivia, we're not really. We're going to be more in the mountainous region. We're going to be in La Paz, which is higher up. There's not going to be that many mosquitoes. Plus, we're going in their winter. So it's their winter now, so we should be fine there. I mean, you definitely want to have your yellow fever vax and all that. So I did get a bunch of vaccinations. I was getting poked by needles, like crazy, even before going to Africa as well, not just Peru, just crazy vaccines all the time.
All right. So you're also on tour with Chris Angel and a couple others in this Diary of Magic. You talked a little bit about it. Now, I'm assuming Chris Angel's like a super nice guy. Do you guys party on the road? Is it like, and this is why I would use a six-pack as a joke. I used to be able to make a six-pack disappear quite fast, but like when you're out there doing the magic stuff, I mean, a lot of these guys, are they so focused on the craft, or they just chill laid back guys and just have fun with it and whatnot? What's the deal there?
So the Diary of Magic, it's a touring stage show with Eric Recker. Now, Eric Recker, he created this wiggle room, and this wiggle room is for a bunch of different acts to come on and do more intimate venues. And this particular show that I'm doing is an intimate venue about magic. There's other acts that are chefs. 98 Degrees are going to do a show. And so there's all these people that are going to come up and talk. And my show again is all about my travels, my world travels, and then the magic that I've learned along the way. And it's called Diary of Magic. And so Eric works very closely with Chris Angel. And Chris may or may not do one of these shows, but I've met Chris, and he is a cool guy. I mean, he's one of those guys that will give you a drink, and he's always like, "Here, have a drink," and he's very friendly with that. But yeah, he's a really cool, down to earth guy. I mean, everybody I think has their stage persona, and you have to. And then when you actually just start talking to someone, they're just a really cool, like I said, down to earth person.
Oh yeah, that's what I've learned in talking to all these people on this show. The self-made awesome show I do here. It's like everybody's pretty chill. And that's why whenever like I get interviewed, it's every once in a while, not often, but they'll ask me like, "What's the worst thing you've ever?" I'm like, it's really hard because like it's not that many people are that bad. And most people who agree to do a show like this want to talk about themselves and they have a positive vibe going. So it's never really it's really hard to get some kind of negativity out of the stuff. That's why I always hated that question, because it's like that's why I try to not ask. It's like I never. Too many people just come with the ambush journalism. I hate that vibe. It's just not fun. Oh, your parents divorced. Let's talk about that. No one would say that shit.
Yeah, it's like
the first 3 dogs you had that died. Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Let me remember that. Yeah, I'll tell you stuff.
All right, we got a couple more, and then we'll get some silly questions here. Have you ever worked with Rick Smith Jr.? You know who that is, I'm assuming, right?
No, who is that? Oh, I think I do, but refresh my memory. I've heard the name.
Usually with the cards, he has a record for throwing the card the farthest. He's really good on the cards. He's based in Cleveland here. He was on a show a while back.
Needless to say, no, because
Looking at him though, he's a good dude. If you might want to work with him in the future. He's a nice guy. He does a lot of stuff in the area, and I know he's always looking to do. He's got a couple million subs on YouTube too. He's a pretty big dude. All right, now we're getting some silly questions here. What kind of dishwashing detergent do you use?
Dishwashing detergent. God, what do I? You know what? this is going to be kind of crazy, but I don't even know what I pick. I just go, it's crazy. I go to the store and I say, all right, I look dishwasher detergent. Okay, this one. And I just throw it in the cart. Sometimes I don't even look at the brand.
That's such a guy answer. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I'm the same way. I mean, at the end of the day, it's we get whatever's cheapest. I mean, whatever's the coolest looking blue and whatever's the cheapest is going to go in the cart.
Yeah, whatever attracts my eye, really. It's like, oh, that one looks cool. All right, let's put that in there.
Hey, hell yeah. All right, how long could you sit in the library and do nothing before you fell asleep?
Do nothing or read a book?
Do nothing. You're just sitting there in a chair and you got to look out into space. You're not talking to anybody. You just sit there, do nothing. How long would it take before you start falling asleep?
Oh man, I think that would just be torture because I don't really fall asleep that easily. So I'd probably just be staring like a creep.
Like an airline flight, just sitting there like, see, like.
Yeah, I'd probably just stare and start like thinking of some weird stuff in my head and having my own movie going on there and just totally space out, I think.
That's great. Well, the basis of that question, because I used to have this job at the VA when I first started there, and it was in the kitchen. We washed dishes, but there was one job they always had. You could sit in the front. You just had to check the slips, but it wasn't that often. It was only so most of the people would just sit in the chair, pretty much sitting there all the time, fall asleep. 100% of the time before that thing, you got to stand up because you're falling asleep. It just happens, man. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
That's great. All right. Speaking of airlines, what is the favorite airline? And you've traveled a lot, so I'm interested to hear your answer to this question. What is the favorite airline you've been on, and do you have a least favorite airline?
United. I like United. Cathay Pacific's pretty nice too. Okay. I like that because I like their business class. When I used to go on the business class there, I like long flights. It's just for me, it's a must. I mean, I'm 6'2", and if I can't fall asleep in a chair, like you were saying, like you'll fall asleep. I just can't fall asleep. I need to lie down. So that I like that airline. The least favorite one, I don't want to say there's a least favorite one, and then they're like, oh, but
right. I feel it.
But I think I will say I had a poor experience on Ethiopian once, and that was only because we were landing in I think it was Addis Ababa, and I don't know what happened, but I was sleeping. And then all of a sudden we hit the worst turbulence I've ever experienced in my life. I thought the plane was I thought we were going down. I mean, I woke up abruptly. I thought it was a nightmare. And there's just, boom, like one of those drops. And it was just a severe drop even before hitting the tarmac and landing. So after that drop, I didn't realize how close we were to the ground. And then we hit and we bounced on the tarmac. And then we finally landed. And I was like, oh God, the plane has finally stopped, so.
You say that and you made me randomly think of this time we were in Honduras, and I was down there in 2006, and the mission was called like Mission of Hope or Mission of some gay ass name like that. And we were down there for the guard, and the guys built a school, and I was there to they call it joint inspection. They can basically get the equipment ready for shipment, put on the plane. Regardless of that, we were down there in Honduras. We had like 2 days off, and we went to this place. But the thing that makes me laugh is like they have to do the announcements in Spanish and in English, and they're doing it in English, and it was clear as day that this guy doing the announcements, like he couldn't speak fluent English. You know what I mean? So he was saying with the worst, barely unbreakable Spanish accent. It just made me laugh. With the emergency evacuation procedure. Oh, it's great. I mean, try. I'm not gonna hate. It's whatever. I'd probably sound the same way if I was doing it in Spanish, but just makes me laugh. Because nowadays a lot of it's recorded too, which is honestly kind of genius too. Because you just press the button, you don't have to put the poor flight attendants through all that awkwardness of doing all the motions and this and that when nobody's paying attention, anyways, right?
Exactly.
Yes, sir. All right. When was the last time you were at the zoo?
Man, I've actually never. Probably when I was a kid, probably 8 years old. I mean, I was at a safari in Ethiopia and Namibia, so that's probably the closest thing that I'd be to a zoo. And then I did go to a cheetah conservatory there as well, but that wasn't a zoo; they were just rehabilitating cheetahs. Yeah, it's probably been 8 years old.
That's crazy. It's double funny that I forgot about the adventurous thing there temporarily. You've actually been to the World Life Zoos. Now that cheetah place, or anyway, have you ever encountered? His wife likes them big old the all black panthers or jaguars or whatever. Have you ever encountered any of those?
Oh no. Yeah, it was just cheetahs. It wasn't any of the panthers. Yeah.
So down the Amazon and all that, you never run into the wild panthers. They're not too plentiful down there, as far as I know, right? It's
No,
not like
I mean, I'm going to say knock on wood that I didn't run into any of them. So,
yeah, right. You're going down the boat and you're, and the next thing you know, if it's coming flying through there, it's probably the best idea. But now I kind of want to see that stuff. You're getting the travel bug back to me, buddy. I got to get the kids back. That's the thing. I got families like they want to travel. Like it's different when you get like once I got married and started having kids and shit. It's a whole different travel thing because you got to take into account that because like the stuff I could do even to this day, I'm almost 50 and I can still do some very rustic and adventure traveling. With the family, not so much. They would complain the entire time. You know, it's just as a guy, it's just how it is as a guy. You know how it is. You can sleep on a cot in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean? So that's why if you're getting the travel bug back in me, man. I'm going to do a lot of this stuff for sure. For sure. Oh, this is a good question. We can double back on that. Speaking of the zoo, did you get to see any basically touch on all the cool wildlife you've seen in your travels in Africa and even in South America if you want?
Yeah, so because the safari, so we did do a safari, which was a walking safari where we could take our own car. And that was that was in Etosha in Namibia. And that was just absolutely beautiful. I mean, we saw zebras, the oryx, which is the staple. It's kind of like an antelope. It's like a deer, so to speak. But it's the only one in Namibia. It's kind of like their mascot, really. Okay. And then giraffes, lions, elephants, hippos. I did see hippos in Ethiopia. And then rhinos. I saw a baby rhino, obviously baby elephants, but getting really up close and seeing them, which was just, awesome. And then even in the area with the cheetahs where we went, you could get on I guess like a Jeep and you'd drive through the conservatory and you'd see them. They come right up to the Jeep and, it just to see them up close is amazing. And especially to see them in their natural habitat. I think that's kind of why I haven't really been to too many zoos, because it's just a totally, it's this experience where you can see them where they're supposed to be, which is in Africa in their land.
Yes, sir. Have you ever been in a Ferrari? What about a Lamborghini? And do you have a favorite car?
I have, but I will still say I'm pretty much a Jeep guy. And the reason is
I forgot about the Jeep thing already. Damn it.
Yeah. The reason really is because I just love the ability to build. I'm very hands-on and I like that I can build it,
Yes, sir. Yeah. Talk to anybody with the Jeep. They got $8 million in accessories in their fucking thing. It's just how it goes, man.
Yeah.
Do you like the Caribbean and have you ever been to the Virgin Islands?
I've never been to either, but I am going to the Caribbean for a show. And I will actually be doing, I'll be doing a show there. So I'm looking forward to that. But I don't have any input on that one because I've never been to either.
Okay. You like the Virgin Islands. What's your favorite kind of, like when you're traveling, do you have a weather preference or is it just whatever that you more of an experience as opposed to weather? It's like if I said, hey, vacation, Rich, give me a place where vacation. Where are you going?
I really did like the Maldives. Maldives was beautiful. And that's, the islands off of India, basically.
Right.
And what I really liked about that is that I didn't stay in the resorts. I actually stayed on Mafushi, which is their main island, but it's more cultural and it's less touristy in a way. So you're still amongst a lot of the locals. And it was really cool because I met one good friend of mine who's a free diver and he was a local and he was teaching a lot of tourists how to free dive. And I remember him taking me out into the ocean and we'd just do all this free diving. And, every day I'd wake up and I was like, oh, I just want to go back in the ocean and free dive. It was just amazing. So I would have to say of all the places, that's where I felt the most relaxed. Like I could wake up, had a great breakfast at the hotel there, went out into the water and spent most of the day just diving in the water.
Oh, that's why. I mean, that's why I like go to that place. We go in the Virgin Islands, St. Thomas. It's called Secret Harbor Resort because there's a beach right there. So you just get up in the morning, you walk right there. There's nothing more convenient than doing that. I mean, if you're at a place where you gotta take a cab or take a train or park and then walk all the way over and carry the shit with you, there's nothing more convenient than just going right back to your room It's right there.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Oh my god. And it's you'd be surprised. Not a lot of people use the beach as much as you think. Like we were out there at sunset every day because they have the bar there is called Sunset Beach Bar because you get a view of the sunset. And like we'd be out there in the water, just, there's nobody out there. It's great. I just love it, man. It's solitude and this and that. You know, hearing them waves and shit, you could even be booking a damn vacation again here, man. This is ridiculous. All right, a couple more and we'll get the hell out of here because I know we're all getting a little tired. Well, I'm getting a little tired. I don't know what this was. Who are the three most important people in your opinion that you've met in your life? Or famous people, not important. Famous people.
Three most important people that I've met. I would say my grandfather is one because he was really a catalyst for a lot of my travels. And I would say can it be family?
Yeah, totally.
All right. Yeah, I would say and my grandmother, and the most important people. And then I would say my mom. I know that's kind of weird and cheesy, but it is related to family. Like my grandmother was like a second mother to me. My mother would always watch my magic tricks that I do. And nobody, I don't think anyone else would put up with what I put her through in terms of, oh, watch this, and doing the martial arts. Like I actually showed me do a routine that the monks do with Shaolin Temple where you put a sharpened spear in your neck and you do Qigong and you make that part of your neck impenetrable. And then I would put it up to my neck and I was like probably 14. And I said, Mom, I'm going to bend this spear with my neck. She's like, no, don't do that. But she'd watch me and she'd let me do it. And then I was able to do it. But she was like my biggest fan and always there. And we'd always go out with my grandma, which was her mom. And, we'd would constantly remember us going out to eat at Papagino's, the pizza place. And then my grandfather was my inspiration for all the travel. So it's like, I couldn't think of more important people than that. Yeah.
Yeah. How long would it take you to parallel park a car?
That I'm fast at. That I can do in probably like 5 seconds.
I'm right about there. I'm actually not too bad about it. I can usually get it right in the first time, about 60% of the time. The only time I ever really got to do is when we're like going to a concert or something. And like if somebody wants to pay for parking, I'll let them. But I'm a cheap ass. I'll walk a mile or two and get free parking. At least that's how you can do it in Cleveland. I don't know, not every city's like that, but like, people, if they say, "Oh, it's too far," I'm like, well, it's like this. If I get, hey, I'll give you $40 to walk a mile. You'd be like, yeah, I'll do that. It's only a mile. Fuck it, right?
Exactly.
Right. Beatles. We ask everybody this question, so it seems silly. It's just a reason why. Beatles or Queen? Who would you pick out of those two bands?
Probably Beatles.
Okay, good choice. All right, what is something, the last two questions we'll get here. What is something you haven't done yet, you're sure you're going to do by the time you're like 50 or so? And what is your advice for your future self?
Oh, man. You're hitting me with everything was so easy. And then now, okay, what was the first question again? Because now
first question, something you haven't done yet is basically bucket list. Yeah, that you're sure you're going to do by the time you're not able to do something 60, 70, whatever. Because you're an adventurous guy. You've done a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to. I always say to people, like, if I ate the bullet now, I felt like I lived a good life. But something that I want to do, I've always said that I would like to climb K2 or one of those bigger mountains, not Everest. I just feel like Everest is, at this point, it's just, it's crowded there now. But one of those mountains, those high Himalayan mountains that is not too crowded, I think I'd probably want to do that. And then the advice that I'd give to my future self is probably to never forget how I was like when I was a kid, because I always wanted to learn. And I think the moment that I stop wanting to learn about things, even if I feel like I've seen it all, is the moment where it's kind of like, I become stagnant and I'm just waiting for the end to happen. But if I constantly am like, okay, there's always something new, whether it's seeing new people or experiencing new things, I think it's like, don't forget that.
Oh yeah, knowledge and information, that's the power, man. That's the power. Money, people act like money in this day. You can have all the money in the world. You have the information, you have the knowledge. Yeah. At the end of the day, that's the power, man. At least my opinion. I don't have $1 million, so who knows? All right. What else do you got to promote, and how do people get a hold of you? Basically, your spiel on the upcoming project.
Yeah, totally. So the basically the upcoming project is season 2 of Culture Shock. People can see updates on season 2 at www.cultureshockmagic.com, and then my own personal website, which is www.expeditionrich. It has all the things that I'm doing outside the TV show and different projects like the live show, the touring show for coming to your particular state or wherever it may be. You can get tickets there. And then Instagram is Rich C Manley, so you can give me a follow and follow along on the adventure.
There you go. Thank you so much, Rich, for joining us. It was an honor. It was a great time. Join us. I'm not gonna do a show Friday because we're gonna be camping, but we're next Monday. Dave Burba, former Major League pitcher, is gonna be on the show, Indians pitcher. So don't miss it, then, guys. All right, Rich, appreciate it, brother, and we'll talk to you guys later.
All right, see you later.
All right, peace.